Welcome to Students Incorporated. I'm your host, Mr. Jason. Join me weekly as my students and I bring you content that's informative, positive, fun, and uplifting. This podcast is created and produced with the help of students from the International Community School of Bangkok. Hey, welcome back. I'm your host, Mr. Jason, and today we're asking a big question. If you were handed the keys to the school, or even just the keys to the cafeteria, what would you actually change? We've all spent time complaining about long lunch lines, dead phone batteries, or the stress of homework. But today we're moving past the complaining. We've challenged our classmates to step into the role of student CEOs. You're going to hear some bold and honest solutions to the everyday problems that may drive some of you crazy. We're also continuing part 2 of our adventure story, The Mystery of St. Augustine. So buckle up and hang on as we get started with our quote of the day and some headline news.
Our quote of the day comes from one of history's most respected leaders, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and it perfectly captures the heart of true leadership. Leadership is the art of getting somebody else to do something you want done because he wants to do it. This quote reminds us that leadership isn't about authority, titles, or control. It's about influence, trust, and shared purpose. Great leaders don't push people forward. They inspire people to move with them. In a world where leadership is often confused with power, Eisenhower shows us that the strongest leaders are those who listen, empower, and align others around a common vision. When people believe in the mission, effort becomes voluntary, and excellence follows naturally. So take this lesson to heart. Lead with clarity, empathy, and intention. When you help others want to succeed, you don't just lead, you multiply impact.
Here's our headline news for today. LVMH strengthens succession plan as Arnold heir steps into top leadership. Luxury giant LVMH made waves this week after promoting Antoine Arnault, son of CEO Bernard Arnault, to the company's executive committee. While succession at family-led empires is always closely watched, this move feels especially strategic. LVMH controls more than 70 global luxury brands, and leadership continuity is critical for investors' confidence, especially as the luxury market slows in China and faces shifting in consumer tastes. He has already held major roles inside the group, working on brand strategy, communications, and sustainability initiatives. His elevation signals that LVMH isn't rushing a handover. Instead, it's carefully building credibility and experience at the top level. For investors, this reinforces the idea that LVMH is thinking decades ahead, not quarters ahead. For the luxury industry, it's a reminder that governance and legacy matter just as much as creative direction. Coming up next, Kroger appoints retail veteran CEO to navigate a high-pressure grocery market. Kroger, one of the largest grocery chains in the United States, has named former Walmart executive Greg Foran as its new CEO, a move that immediately caught Wall Street's attention. The appointment comes after a turbulent leadership period and at a time when grocery margins are razor thin. Competition is fierce, and consumer spending habits remain unpredictable. Foran is known for operational discipline and scaling massive retail systems, particularly during his time modernizing Walmart's grocery business. His challenge at Kroger won't just be growth. It'll be efficiency, pricing strategy, and supply chain resilience. With Amazon, Walmart, and discount grocers squeezing traditional supermarkets, Kroger's decision signals a shift toward execution-focused leadership rather than flashy innovation. In today's retail environment, stability may be the real competitive advantage. And lastly, CEOs return as founders reclaim control in an AI-driven business era. In a broader business trend, companies are increasingly turning back to founders and legacy leaders as artificial intelligence reshapes entire industries. One of the latest examples is Workday, which reinstated its co-founder as CEO amid investor pressure and strategic uncertainty around AI integration. This reflects a growing belief that original builders, not professional managers, may be better positioned to steer companies through technological disruptions. As AI changes hiring, finance, productivity, and decision-makings, boards are prioritizing vision and institutional knowledge over short-term performance metrics. For podcasts tracking leadership trends, this moment highlights a bigger question. In time of rapid change, do companies need innovation specialists or trusted architects who understand the system from the ground up?
Thank you for the quote in the headline news. Let's jump into our first segment, where we have asked several of our students to play the role of CEO and we've assigned each of them an operational function, something that they have been put in charge of. So let's hear from our student CEOs and how they might tackle some of the things they are most passionate about. Proud and VJ are leading this first segment, so go ahead and get started.
Josep, if you were the CEO of attendance and tardiness, what changes would you make?
If I was to be the CEO of attendance and tardiness, I would give raises to people who come early and on time in order to incentivize them. As someone who's been late to school countless times myself, if I had the thought of making some extra money for simply being on time, I wouldn't have even needed an alarm clock to wake up. In order to not run out of money, however, I would simply give people a pat on the back after they come early a certain amount of times. Of course, I would always go to the other route in order to incentivize people, a more negative one. Instead of positive reinforcement, it will be negative reinforcement, where late students and absent students have to pay through embarrassing performances or acts the teachers of the classes they missed would order them to do. As such, if you missed day 1, get ready to do some push-ups asked by your A block teacher, sing for your B block teacher, do some interpretive dancing in C block, and fetch water for your teacher in D.
Vanaj, if you were the CEO of Lunchline Logistics, what changes would you make?
If I were the CEO of our school's lunch lines, I would start by changing how food is distributed. Having only one line for a popular dish creates long waits and wastes students' time. I would add multiple serving stations for high-demand meals and possibly create an express line for students who are grabbing just one item. Spreading the same dish across several lines would reduce bottlenecks and make the process much faster. I would also introduce a simple pre-order system where students could choose their lunch earlier in the day. This would help staff prepare the right amount of food and speed up service. In addition, improving the cafeteria layout with clearer signs and better traffic flow would prevent crowding. Together, these changes would shorten wait times and make lunch more efficient and enjoyable.
Sinsen, if you were the CEO of Fountain Politics, what changes would you make?
The changes I would make would be simple. First, I would have a fountain cleaning every 2 days. This is because in school, water fountains often get dirty due to frequent use. By having it cleaned every day, it will reduce the risk of germs and diseases from spreading around campus. Not only will it make the fountain cleaner, but it will help give us a healthier school life. The second thing I would add to fountains is a soda option. This would increase the options for drinks for students to drink and stay hydrated throughout the day. The sodas I'm talking about are plain soda with no sugar. This is a good drink option because it is healthy and it can be offered as a refreshment.
Dorcas, if you were the CEO of Hall Passes, what changes would you make?
Okay, if I was the CEO of Hall Passes, everyone would have different ones. So like one would be used to go to the bathroom, one would be used to go get water, and one would be used when you just need to step out of the classroom. Because sometimes you're tired and you just need to walk around to wake up. They would be different colors, so when you're in class, you just raise whichever one you need to do. Like, you need to get water, so you raise this card so the teacher will know. It is way more subtle this way, and then the whole class doesn't have to stare at you while you ask to use the bathroom. It also helps the teachers because they don't have to stop their lesson just to let you get water. I'd also let people decorate their hall passes. Of course, the teachers will still need to see what color it is you raise, so they know, they're raising, red, so I'm going to let them get water or something. But yeah, they'll need to still see that it's red, but they can get, little stickers on, the corner or, the border or something. Just because, everyone likes to customize things so they can, make their hall pass match their personality. So, yeah.
Pan, if you were the CEO of Low Battery Anxiety, what changes would you make?
Ooh, interesting. Well, as the CEO of Low Battery Anxiety, with a specialty in mobile phones, I would direct our company to redesign a 7-day lifespan mobile phone battery for all major brands in demand, like Apple, Samsung, Huawei, and many more, and sell at an affordable price for all mobile phone users. I would also offer a premium monthly membership for our luxurious lounges across major cities and airports all around ICS in the world, and no more fear for those malicious charging stations set by cyber criminals and teachers who always do their jobs too well. Anyways, wherever you go, whether to your nearby airport, your community living mall, or to the other side of the world during your travel, or just ICS, we will always be there. Anywhere in your journey and anytime you need us. Choose Pun for your next CEO of Low Battery Anxiety.
John and Anu, if you were the CEOs of Interview, what changes would you make?
Okay. If I were the CEOs of interview, I would create my own channel and allow people to listen to the interview I conduct. If I make a channel that posts my interviews, more people will have access to diverse opinions and personal insights. This would help the society to listen to individual stories and improve the social mood to be more empathetic. Not only that, the channel will allow me to make finance that will allow me to hire people, which will ultimately lead me to collect more voice of people and more empathetic society. As CEO, I would try to maintain this positive cycle of interview to money to more interview to better society.
I were the CEO of Interview, I would focus on making Interview about an influential platform for culture, art, and conversation. I would ensure that every feature feels authentic and creative, allowing people to share their real thought and personality, instead of giving scripted or predictable answers. My goal would be to keep Interview expressive and always ahead of trends. I would also make my digital platform by creating more interactive content such as live conversations, short-form video, and behind-the-scene features. At the same time, I would continue highlighting diverse and rising talent while maintaining a strong, recognizable identity that makes Interview stand out.
Porsche, if you were the CEO of Homework, what changes would you make?
If I was the CEO of Homework, I would ensure that students only get homework when it truly helps them understand the lesson or subject better, rather than just adding an extra grade. There should also be little to no homework on the weekends, as people should have time to spend with their families, friends, or just rest, as homework in school overall can take a toll on students' mental health. By doing this, students will be able to see homework as helpful practice rather than another source of stress, leading students to have a healthier balance between their education and their personal or social life. And this would allow students to build different skills like time management.
Bang, if you were the CEO of Playground Duty, what changes would you make?
If I were the CEO of Playground Duty, I would make sure it helps students feel safe and supported rather than constantly watched. Supervisors would focus on encouraging kindness, including everyone in activities, and stepping in calmly when conflicts happen instead of being overly strict. There should also be a balance between safety and freedom so students can relax and enjoy their breaks. By doing this, Playground Duty would feel positive instead of stressful, helping students build social skills and return to class refreshed.
Lucas, if you were the CEO of In-School Suspension, what changes would you make?
If I was the CEO of in-school suspension, I would make it a space where students can talk to certain teachers or staff on why they're there in the first place. I feel like right now students are there, just kind of sit there and do homework and whatnot. So I would actually definitely add a layer of reflection and counseling. In addition to that, I would actually limit the amount of work that can be done so it's really targeted towards counseling and reflection instead of a study hall for the whole day. I feel like a lot of the stigma around suspension is just that to make the students feel bad for whatever they did, but I feel like it really shouldn't be that way. But instead a way to guide students from their wrongdoings. It can actually be a good thing to help students back on track. I also put some workout equipment there just in case they have pent up emotions that they want to get rid of.
And that's a wrap on segment 1. It's fascinating to hear how differently things would run if students were actually in charge. From positive reinforcement raises for attendance to soda fountains in the hallways. Our student CEOs have definitely given us a lot to think about. We're going to take a quick pause for a break, and when we come back, we are diving back into part 2 of our adventure story, The Mystery of St. Augustine. So don't go anywhere.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The Senior Capstone Service Projects is the final countdown to the biggest milestone for the ICS class of 2026. The research is done, the service hours are being logged, and the finish line finally has a date. Mark your calendars for March 24, 2026. This is the day the seniors move from the classroom to the stage. The Senior Capstone Service Projects are more than just a graduation requirement. They are a showcase of leadership, grip, and community impact. Our seniors will present the culmination of months of hard work, proving they are ready to step out of the halls of ICS and into the world. What to expect on March 24? Firstly, the presentations. Seniors will defend their research and reflect on their service impact before a panel of judges. Secondly, the learning stretch. A celebration of the moments where students push past their comfort zones to solve real-world problems. Lastly, a legacy of service. A look at how the class of 2026 has left their mark on our community. To the seniors, use this time to polish your visuals, refine your speech, and ensure your data reflects the heart of your project. The stage is yours on March 24.
And we are back. For this segment, we will be bringing you part 2 of our 10-part adventure story titled The Mystery of St. Augustine. Before we jump into part 2, here's a brief recap of part 1.
The story opened on a North Florida beach where operatives of the shadowy syndicate called the Table unearthed a box of 16th century Spanish coins, confirming the existence of a legendary shipwreck. Their leader, First Chair, orders them to find the main prize while also disrupting the research of Tom Reynolds' team at St. Augustine's Historical Society. Back in California, Dr. Conrad, the president of El Dorado College, presents Professor James Hawthorne and Professor Amanda Chase with an opportunity to join a research project with one of his longtime friends, Tom Reynolds. While James ensures his wife, Anne, can join the trip, Amanda uncovers a small but very important lead in the college library, which suggests there may be more than one Drake shipwreck. And now, without further ado, here is part 2, titled The Arrival.
That evening, James Hawthorne walks through his front door, sets his keys down, and takes off his shoes. He looks up and sees Anne rearranging some of the chairs around their old wooden dining table. "Did you see my text?" he asked.
I did, but it was pretty vague, Anne replies.
"Yeah, I couldn't text you all the details, but I can explain more now that I'm home. So," he began, "Dr. Conrad called Amanda and me into his office today."
Oh, that sounds official.
It was, James said. "He's approved a special project for our department, a collaboration with the St. Augustine Historical Society in Florida."
Anne raised her eyebrows. Florida? That's new. What kind of collaboration?
"Research and survey work," James said, sticking to the official version of the story. "An old friend of Conrad's runs a historical society there. They're looking into some old maritime theories. Some would even call them legends. And they want our department's expertise in the field. And they don't want local media or government officials to know about it yet."
Anne walked over toward the front door, grabbed a jacket, and started putting on her shoes. How long? What about your classes?
"Conrad's handling it. He's bringing in adjuncts to cover for us. As for how long? A few weeks, maybe. It's an initial survey." He paused, then added, "It would mean traveling soon, and I made you a promise after Mexico."
Yes, you did.
"Are you going somewhere? Did I miss something?" James asked.
You did promise I'd be on your next trip. Anne then added, Florida? I've never been to St. Augustine. Can you believe that? Anne grabs James' keys off the counter, puts them back in his hand, and then says, Put your shoes back on. Let's grab a bite to eat at Ethan's cafe in town, and you can fill me in on all the other details.
The following morning, Amanda called Olivia Park into her office. "Olivia, I'm bringing you onto a new project," Amanda said, getting straight to the point. "Professor Hawthorne and I are leading a fieldwork assignment starting immediately."
Olivia, surprised by the offer, then asked, "What kind of project?"
"A research and survey trip in St. Augustine, Florida. It's a high-level collaboration with the Historical Society there. It's paid, it's confidential, and I've already cleared it with Dr. Conrad for you to be a research assistant." Prof. Amanda continued, "I'm offering this to you specifically because it's not just another credit. This is the kind of high-profile field work that graduate programs look for. It's a major opportunity, and I think you'd be a valuable teammate."
Olivia's face could not hold back her excitement. "Yes, absolutely. Yes, I'm in. Thank you. When do we leave?"
Prof. Amanda answered, "Soon, probably within a few days, so be ready to pack on short notice." And Amanda added,
We are keeping this trip quiet for now. No social media, no telling friends any of the details about the research. For the short term, we're keeping this strictly need to know. Our colleagues in Florida don't want any of the attention this may bring just yet. That time will come, especially if we are successful.
Professor, for the official record, will we be documenting the survey with photo and video? Olivia asked.
Yes, standard procedure, Amanda confirmed. Site logs, reference photos, and recorded video. That's one of the main reasons I'm inviting you to be part of this.
I can handle all of it, Olivia said. I've got my pro camera and recording gear. I can create a full visual archive of the entire project, from our initial research to everything we do in the field. It would be perfect. Comprehensive record that the college and the historical society could use sometime when they are ready to go public. And as a bonus, this could be the perfect project I can use for the grad school admissions. Of course, with the college permission.
Yep, my thoughts exactly. Prof. Amanda reaffirmed Olivia's excitement and then said, "This will be a great experience for you, and I believe it will help you get into that grad program at Cambridge."
The flight from Sacramento crossed 3 time zones, and by the time the team, Professor Hawthorne, his wife Anne, Prof. Amanda, and Olivia landed in Jacksonville, it was late afternoon and they were all starving. As they exited the plane and collected their luggage, Hawthorne mumbled to the others, "That $15 snack box on the plane was an insult."
Agreed, Anne said. Our first order of business should be food.
I won't argue with that, Amanda replies.
Me neither, says Olivia.
After gathering their luggage and finding their rental, a large and comfortable white SUV, James got in the driver's seat, took the wheel, and slid open the sunroof. As they turned south onto the highway, the cabin filled with the clean, mild air of a perfect Florida spring. It was a pleasant, welcome change from the dry California heat.
So where are we eating? Anne asked while getting the GPS set up from the passenger seat.
I already have a spot, Amanda said, looking up from her phone. It's supposed to be a local, best-kept secret on the St. Augustine Bayfront. Will's Seafood Bar and Grill.
All right, sounds good, Anne replied while punching in the name in the GPS. Looks like we have an hour on the road, but I'm sure it'll be worth it. After an hour's worth of conversations in the SUV between the four of them, they pull into the small parking lot beside Will's Seafood Bar and Grill. Will's wasn't on the main tourist drag. It was one of those places that you had to know about. Most tourists who visit St. Augustine visit the larger chain seafood restaurants on a different street. However, Will's was special, and the locals wanted to keep it that way. Prices were cheap, and the food was fresher. The restaurant was a sprawling old wooden building that sat close to the marina. It had a wide porch that overlooked the water. As the four travelers stepped out of their rental, they noticed the fresh salt air and cool breeze that came with being located right on the water.
A man in a floral shirt and khaki shorts was wiping down a table on a porch. He looked up with a friendly smile. "Afternoon, folks. You look new in town. Welcome to Will's Seafood Bar and Grill. I'm Will. Yes, this is my place."
"James Hawthorne," James replied, shaking his hand. "This is Anne, Amanda, and Olivia. We were told you have the best seafood in town. At least that's what Amanda had found out online."
This place was hard to find online, but I happened to come across a few blog posts that raved about this place. Anyway, we also like to support locals, Amanda replied.
"Well, I hope we live up to the hype," Will said. "You're just in time for the late afternoon fresh catch. Some of the local fishermen got some yellowfin tuna earlier today, and, well, I bought 2 of them. Anyways, grab a table you like, and I'll send a server right over."
After a quick, delicious meal, Hawthorne paid the bill. As the four were getting up to leave, Will walked back over to their table. "Your recommendation was delicious, and the service was spot on," Hawthorne said. "Thank you for the warm welcome to St. Augustine."
"Happy to hear it. So what brings you to town? You don't look like the usual tourist."
Amanda jumped in before James could answer. Our university sent us to do some historical research, a work trip, you could say. all the way from California.
Well, you picked the right time for it, Will replied. It's not peak season, so you'll miss those big summer crowds. Should be a nice and quiet visit for you. He reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a business card. You get free time and want to get out on the water. My friend Robert Mitchell, but he's known as Bobby around here. He runs First Coast Charters right here in the harbor. He's a great captain. Besides, I like to promote his business. Most of my fresh catch, including what you just ate, comes from his boat every morning.
Anne took the card. Thank you, Will. If we get some free time, we'll definitely check it out. With a final wave, the four left the restaurant and headed for their SUV. As they all got into the vehicle, Anne said, "What's next on the agenda for today?"
Amanda checked her phone. We have an introductory meeting with Tom Reynolds, Dr. Conrad's friend, and 2 other society members, Mrs. Ferguson and Miss Harfer.
The Historical Society is only 10 minutes from here, Hawthorne said, looking out the window. Let's drive around a bit first, get a lay of the town, and maybe find some ice cream. As he said this, he looked over at Anne and cracked a small smile, only to see her roll her eyes in response.
That's a great idea, Olivia said from the back seat. I can get some generic B-roll footage of the town with my camera.
Good thinking, Olivia, Amanda agreed. Let's do it, and if we find some ice cream along the way, I won't complain. Inside the St. Augustine safe house, second chair washed as sixth chair placed a small stack of archival documents on the glass coffee table. Chair 3 was pacing by the window. Report, Midnight said as she stared directly at chair 6.
The society storage room is compromised. Chair 6 stated simply. The small safe was an antique. It was easy. I was in and out under 10 minutes. I didn't even need the combination.
Third chair stopped pacing. That's it? A few pieces of old paper?
This, sixth chair said, tapping an old brittle logbook, is Tom Reynolds' entire case. This and these 2 old worn letters are the only primary sources he has that point to the 1586 shipwreck and the only one shipwreck theory.
Chair 3 picked up one of the letters, scanning its contents. This is what he was protecting?
This is what he was planning to share, sixth chair corrected. He has a meeting scheduled for this afternoon with an outside team. He intended to give them copies of these. I'm not sure who the outside team is, but I don't think they're a threat.
Minute smiled slightly and said, "And now he can't. He has nothing. It's a dead end for them." She then asked, "Are you sure there are no copies of this stuff? I need some guarantees here if I'm going to report back to first chair."
Sixth chair was silent, but raised her eyebrows as if to communicate. No, and if there were any copies, I would have found them in that small safe with the rest of these stuff.
Midnight, after observing the sixth chair's reaction, then said, "Okay, I'll let the first chair know we have discreetly and secretly taken care of the other evidence. I'm sure we'll be able to move on to the next phase."
Sixth chair then said, as if to make a point, the people at the Historical Society will be chasing shadows and dead ends. There's no need to pay any more attention to what they'll be doing.
Good, Chair 3 said, now looking down at the old logbook and worn letters. Let them and their new friends play historians. We have the small, strong box from the beach, and we now have the other clues and research.
Don't touch that stuff. The less it's handled, the better. We don't need it falling apart before we can study and evaluate it. Chair 2 then followed that up and said, "Tell 4 and 5 to finish their errands. Our work in the harbor and along the coast will begin soon."
The team's brief driving tour gave them a feel for the city's ancient, narrow streets and unique stone architecture. Professor Hawthorne pulled into the parking lot of the St. Augustine Historical Society. The Spanish colonial-style one-story building sat off the street at a distance with a back alley and included a shaded front courtyard. A woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Sarah Ferguson met the Eldorado team in the lobby. Mrs. Ferguson was stoic and professional, and James had to guess she was in her early 50s. Her welcome felt restrained, almost tense. "Hi, I'm James Hawthorne," James said. "This is my wife Anne, who will be helping with research, and 2 of my colleagues from the college, Professor Chase and Olivia Park."
"Welcome to you all," Mrs. Ferguson said, her voice flat. "I'm the resident archivist. Tom is waiting for you all. Please follow me."
Tom Reynolds stood when they entered the conference room. He looked frustrated and put off, and was obviously trying to maintain his professional composure. Beside him sat a younger woman with an eager and ready expression on her face. James, Amanda, Tom said, moving to shake their hands. Thank you for coming.
Tom, this is my wife Anne and our research assistant Olivia Park, James said, completing the introductions. I'm glad we can meet. Dr. Conrad speaks very highly of you.
As he does with all of you, Tom replied, and then continued. I suppose that's the reason he recommended you all. And, not to mention, your experience and somewhat of a celebrity in fieldwork.
The team took their seats. Tom, what's wrong? Hawthorne asked, cutting straight to the point.
Tom then looked over at Mrs. Ferguson, nodded his head, and said, Go ahead, you can explain.
An hour ago, Mr. Reynolds went to our archival safe in one of the back storage rooms and to retrieve the primary source documents for your briefing. Mrs. Ferguson said in a controlled monotone, and they were gone.
Amanda leaned forward. Gone? What do you mean gone?
I mean gone, Tom said, his voice cracking slightly. The entire file, the 17th century logbook, the 2 corroborating letters, everything. The entire evidentiary basis for this project vanished.
But it was in a safe, Hawthorne said.
A secure archival safe, Sarah Ferguson confirmed. There is no sign of forced entry.
Cecilia Harper, the young researcher, spoke for the first time. I'm Cece, by the way. No need to call me Miss Harper, even though most people introduce me that way. Cece stood up and started pacing back and forth and continued talking. Anyway, the safe is an old tumbler system. It's not electronic, it's old school. The combination is known by exactly 2 people, Mrs. Ferguson and Mr. Reynolds. We can't find any evidence of a break-in. None of our alarms went off, and nothing else in that storage room was touched. Mrs. Ferguson and I would know since we kept details records of all our historical inventory. And everything else in that room was accounted for. There's plenty of other stuff in that room that's both valuable and not in a safe. But none of it was taken. Only the documents that were in the safe are missing.
Anne looks over at James Hawthorne and whispers under her breath. The mystery of the missing documents. How do you always seem to find yourself in these situations?
Good question. I'm still figuring that out as well, Hawthorne whispers back. An awkward silence then filled the room for several seconds. Tom, James said gently, when did you last see the documents?
Friday afternoon, Tom said, running a hand through his hair. I checked them myself. I went to pull them this afternoon, right before you arrived, and nothing. Just an empty shelf. We've quietly searched the archives, thinking I misplaced them. But like Mrs. Ferguson and Cece said, they're gone, and I was the last to see them. Tom continued, I've called you all the way across the country. We have state and private grant money tied to this research, and we have nothing. No proof, no starting point. I don't know who or why, but someone or something has just wiped our entire project off the map before we could even begin.
Hawthorne and Amanda exchanged a brief, critical glance. Tom's one shipwreck theory, the entire official funded project was dead, but their own clue was not. Safe in Amanda's bag were the photocopied pages from that one-of-a-kind logbook. The evidence pointed not to one shipwreck, but 2. Professor Hawthorne and Professor Amanda both silently understood that the missing documents from the Historical Society's archive hadn't ended the project yet, but rather it just made their secret exponentially more valuable. Not nothing, Tom, Hawthorne said, his voice calm and steady. Your documents have gone missing, but your memory has not.
Tom looked up, confused. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
You brought us here for our expertise, Hawthorne continued, so let's start there. Tell us everything you remember, every detail from those documents. Let's build it and try to piece it together.
Half an hour later, the conference room had been converted into a research center. Tom, his initial panic replaced by a focused urgency, was dictating from memory. The logbook was in Spanish, 17th century. It mentioned the loss of the Englishman north of the city.
Cece Harper typed furiously at her laptop, pulling up digital maps and other files. Was it north of the inlet or north of the fort? The old boundaries are different.
Tom squinted his eyes a bit, then looked up at the ceiling, a habit he had since his school days. Whenever he had to think and try to remember small details, he would squint his eyes and then look up at the ceiling, hoping that this small repetition of an action would trigger his memory. North of the fort, he recalled. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the documents mentioned the wreck was north of the fort.
Amanda was taking her own notes, cross referencing what Tom said with her own knowledge. Sometimes she would glance over at Professor Hawthorne. Olivia sat at the end of the table, her camera on, recording Tom's testimony as an official record. Anne listened and observed, taking it all in.
A sharp, polite knock broke the rhythm. Sarah Ferguson, who had been standing by the door, opened it. A man in a pressed polo shirt and slacks, his badge clipped to his belt, stood in the hallway. He was sharp and looked like he missed nothing. Mr. Reynolds, Sarah said. Lieutenant Walsh is here.
Tom stood, relief and stress on his face. Dan, thank you for coming so quickly and quietly.
Tom, Sarah, Walsh said, nodding. His eyes immediately swept the room, cataloging the new faces.
Dan, this is Professor Hawthorne, his wife Anne, Professor Chase, and Olivia Park, Tom said. They're consultants from El Dorado College out in California. They're here to help with a research project.
Walsh gave a single nod to the team. Lieutenant Daniel Walsh, St. Augustine PD. He turned back to Tom and said, Consultants from California. You all just arrived?
Landed a few hours ago, grabbed a late lunch, and then came right here, Hawthorne answered.
They arrived for our pre-planned meeting shortly after. I called you earlier, Sarah said.
Some welcome, I see. Walsh said, his tone dry. He was all business. So the phone call was brief, and well, since I was in the neighborhood, I thought I would come by and check it out instead of sending one of my other officers. Was this a high-value theft?
This way, Sarah said, leading him from the conference room down a short hall to the archival room. The team followed, clustering in the doorway. Sarah pointing to the old safe, then said, There's no sign of forced entry. Only Tom and I have the combination.
Walsh nodded, unfazed. Then my job here is to find out who else might have gotten it, or who else was in this room. He continued, By the way, what's missing?
Tom spoke up and walked toward the safe. Some very important and one-of-a-kind old documents that are crucial to our research project were in that safe. Emphasis on were.
Walsh nodded, unfazed. Tom, we've known each other for some time now, and I can't remember a time when my department had to investigate an incident here at the Historical Society. Very unusual. Walsh then said, I guess my job is to find out who else might have gotten the combination, or who else has been in this room besides you and Sarah.
Cece, who is standing in the doorway with the others, then says, I've been in this room before, sir. I work here, but I don't have access to any of the archival safes.
Walsh then turned and looked over at the doorway, then said, And who are you exactly?
My name is Cece Harper, and Mrs. Ferguson hired me over a year ago to help be a liaison between the Historical Society and the city's tourism board.
Walsh Lieutenant Dan set down a small hardened case on a nearby table and opened it. It contained a set of sterile swabs, vials, and a handheld UV scanning device. So who else has had access to this room besides the three of you then? Walsh then asked.
To our knowledge, no one, Sarah answered.
This lock and handle are high contact surfaces, Walsh explained as he put on a pair of nitrile gloves. If they weren't wearing gloves, they left trace DNA. But even if they had gloves, they might have left fibers. He carefully swabbed the dial, the handle, and the floor directly in the front of the safe. He bagged each swab individually. We'll run these at the lab, he said. He then took out the UV scanner and passed it over the safe. No obvious residues. They were clean, professional. He packed his kit. All right, Tom. I'll get these to the lab. For now, I would like the names of everyone who has entered the building within the last 72 hours. Additionally, if you have any security camera footage from the same period, that will also be helpful. Maybe we can match a face with a name. I'll also mention this to Chief Sullivan and get it on his radar. This historical society means a lot to this town, so we'll follow up with you shortly. In the meantime, if you find anything or remember something, let me know. And with that, Lieutenant Dan Walsh left in the same abrupt and straightforward way as he came.
Later that evening, second chair and sixth chair were once again in the condo's living room, reporting to the first chair via the secure laptop. Chairs 3, 4, and 5 were not present, having spent the day conducting surveillance around the Castillo de San Marcos fort, which sits just north of the Bridge of Lions. It's not really an active fort anymore. It's actually called the Castillo de San Marcos Natural Monument. Built between 1672 and 1695, this historic fort is the oldest masonry fort in the continental United States. The Spanish built the fortification to help defend Florida and the Atlantic trade route at the time, and it has a long history of changing hands between the Spanish, English, and the United States. The fort is laid out in a unique star-shaped design and was never breached or conquered. However, nowadays, it is a tourist destination with a $15 admission fee. The stolen documents from the Historical Society were still neatly spread out on the glass coffee table, where they had been earlier. 6. The low and non-emotional voice from the laptop began. The documents you retrieved.
My assessment is they are authentic. The logbook, the letters, the paper, and the ink are consistent with the time period. They seem to support the shipwreck theory Tom Reynolds was building his research project on.
Your assessment is noted, first chair replied. I require verification. Absolute confirmation is essential before we move on. As our next course of action must be calculated and methodical, we need confirmation. Iroh's red list demands it.
What are your orders? Midnight asked.
I'm diverting chairs 3, 4, and 5 from the fort. Their time is better spent elsewhere. We can get back to the old fort later. Instead, they will be traveling to Jacksonville. They have 2 objectives. The voice paused. First, their primary target is a person of interest, Eleanor Bennett. I want full, discreet surveillance, her habits, her contacts, her schedule. I want to know who she talks to, where she goes. She is a variable. Even though this is not in our mission brief from Iroh, I found out through a mutual contact that Miss Bennett is financing this job. So, just out of curiosity, I want to know why.
Midnight processed this. Understood. And the second objective?
The second objective, first chair said, is to complete the authentication I require. While they are in Jacksonville, they will take one of the documents 6 stole from the Historical Society to the University of North Florida. Make sure the documents are insignificant. We don't want any unwanted attention.
The UNF lab? Sixth chair said, her voice showing some doubt. I think security there is pretty tight.
Don't you think I know that? First chair replied sharply. They will pose as research assistants from a South Florida university, I don't care which one, claiming to need a non-destructive analysis for an academic paper. You and Midnight need to secure proper IDs and credentials for them.
Midnight nodded. Survey Bennett and authenticate the document, all in one trip.
Yes, first chair concluded, but first get them proper IDs and credentials. We don't want to be compromised on such a trivial technicality, such as a poorly made fake university ID. So just get it done. I want to report by the end of the week. The connection clicked off.
With the laptop screen black now, Sixth chair nodded and looked at Midnight. Is there no way to bypass Iroh and the timeline? Remind me what they do.
The International Artifact Recovery Organization, Midnight replied, sorting through the stolen documents. They are financing this job. Our commissions will be significant. They have deep pockets and a long red list. She continued, their relationship with the table goes back before our time. Iroh's international standing and Swiss headquarters allowed it to appear neutral in this cat-and-mouse game of artifact recovery. When they need unconventional results, they contact us. There's a reason we were recruited. Each of us has a colorful background and a valuable skill.
Chair 6 slid 2 nondescript letters into protective plastic sleeves, then into a hardcover binder for transport. Besides, first chair, you and I have been at this the longest, she said. I just hope 3, 4, and 5 understand what's the stake.
Oh, they understand, Midnight said, her voice flat and non-emotional. The alternative for them, and us, frankly, is either a small cell at The Hague or a dirt nap in an unmarked grave. She looked at Sixth chair and then said, those are the choices. I'll take my chances with the table.
The next morning, the El Dorado team walked back into the Historical Society's conference room. The mood was somber but focused. Tom, Sarah, and Cece were already at the long table, with a large video monitor at the far end. "You're just in time," Tom said. "She's expecting us." He clicked the mouse, and after a moment, the screen lit up. The face of a woman in her late 40s appeared. She was poised and smiling, sitting in a bright, elegant room. This was Eleanor Ellie Bennett.
"Tom, good morning," she said. Her accent was a polite transatlantic blend of British and American. "And I see you have a full room."
"Good morning," Tom replied. "As I mentioned, the consultant team from El Dorado College has arrived. I'd like to introduce you." Tom motioned to the team. Dr. James Hawthorne, his wife Anne, Dr. Amanda Chase, and their research assistant, Olivia Park.
"Oh my," Ellie said with a smile. "How wonderful. Tom didn't tell me he was bringing in such an esteemed group, Dr. Hawthorne. I've heard and read some of your past, should I say, harrowing experiences." She gave a small, almost apologetic laugh. "I must admit, Tom, you've assembled quite the team. I just want to be sure we can keep this, well, confidential."
Hawthorne leaned forward with a reassuring nod of his head. "Mrs. Bennett, James Hawthorne, it's a pleasure to meet you. And please, I understand completely. My team is small and they are the best at what we do. More importantly, they're discreet. We've handled sensitive projects before, as you know. Your confidentiality is our top priority."
"Oh, I'm sure it is, Dr. Hawthorne. Thank you. That's very reassuring," she said, seeming genuinely pleased. "Please call me Ellie." She turned her attention back to Tom. "Well, Tom, how are things progressing?"
"We are underway," Tom said, choosing his words with care. "We've hit a small snag, a procedural issue with some of our archival data. Nothing that we can't overcome."
Ellie's smile faded. "Oh dear, a snag. Is it serious?"
"It's a temporary delay, but it's actually why Dr. Hawthorne and Dr. Chase's expertise is all the more valuable," Tom said, trying to backpedal. "We are already rebuilding the research framework and are confident we can move forward."
"Well, I certainly have faith in you, Tom. And with this new team, I'm sure you'll have it sorted out in no time," Ellie said. "Please just keep me informed. I'm so excited about what we might find."
"We will, Ellie. Thank you," Tom said.
"Wonderful. I'll let you all get to work. A pleasure to meet you all," she said with a final bright wave.
The screen clicked to black, leaving the team in the quiet room. Hawthorne then broke the silence and said, "All right, what's the plan for today?" And that's a wrap. Today we saw what happens when students stop complaining and start leading. From Vinaj's efficient lunch lines to Pun's battery solutions and Lucas's vision for a better suspension system, our student CEOs prove that their solutions are both creative and innovative. But will the solutions work? That's the big question I'll leave with you all today. Also, stay tuned for part 3 of our adventure story in our next episode, as we continue to follow our heroes and villains as they seek to uncover the mystery of St. Augustine. And as always, this podcast would not be possible without the hard work and support of our international student production team.
All music and sound effects are courtesy of Pixabay.com, a vibrant community of creatives sharing copyright-free images, videos, and music.
And we're signing off until next time. We are Students Incorporated, because your voice matters.